In terms of numbers, last month did about 196 with about 120-ish in EBITDA, give or take. Over the past 7 years, we've actually had only one employee quit.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a client showcase by agency operators Level Up. My name is Kyle Hunt, and I help agency owners install my 8-figure systems in their businesses so they can scale without being the chief problem solver. And today I'm joined by Adam Matthews, and he's the founder of AQM Media. And Adam has one of the most unique e-commerce agencies I've ever come across, and he's built something that breaks a lot of the rules that I've made and that I knew and that I thought about agency operations. And he's got over 20 clients now, really insane profit margins, and a business that runs smoother than most of the agencies that are double his size. So Adam's story is one you definitely need to hear. Welcome, bro.
Appreciate you having me on there, Kyle.
Cool. Adam, so give people a quick rundown. What does your agency do? Who do you serve? And what are you looking at today in terms of size?
Yeah, so basically, been in the e-commerce space for about 9 years. Started this about 7 years ago. We essentially work with I guess you could say some unique e-commerce companies, if you will, not like your traditional fashion, beauty, swimwear, and all kind of brands and stuff like that. We typically, when we onboard brands, we'll do Meta Google, and then we'll send email and SMS, and then essentially we'll just upsell content when the whole foundation is like looking solid. In terms of numbers, last month did about 196 with about 120-ish in EBITDA, give or take. So very healthy profit margins. Like
Super healthy.
Yeah, something we pride ourselves on. So it's doing really well.
Yeah, congratulations, man. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What you said unique. What do you mean unique clients?
I would just say like just a very unique niches. Like for example, like I don't know, like we have like a flamethrower brand, like a hammer brand, like some automotive, like just weird obscure niches that just I feel like I know a lot of people in the e-commerce space are just a lot of them we work with mostly the fashion and just like maybe some tech products, this and that. But yeah, just don't really come across many that are working with these kind of brands usually. So we kind of just like stumbled across it and stuff. So yeah, it just kind of our main clientele now.
So a lot of agency owners that I consult with, they go after like the big visible brands, like the big fashion or supplement or beauty brands. But you're selling like $300 hammers and motorcycle parts, but you're killing it doing it. So how did you land on this type of ICP, and how has it been such a big operational advantage for you?
Yeah, I would say it was just because we were doing outbound and stuff like that. And we kind of started experimenting. And I think what it was we came across this one woodworking brand. He was doing about like 60-ish K a month or something like that. And he basically never ran any ads at all, doing no email and SMS. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is just a gold mine here. Sure enough, we end up obviously just crushing it for him, doing really, really well. And then I was just like, then kind of had me kind of going to some adjacent niches, start doing some more of these tool brands and stuff like that. We found that the ads worked insanely well for them and stuff like that. So we're going to put all this effort in. We may as well just kind of, do it on the ones that are a little bit easier. So that's kind of how we, kind of came across it and stuff like that. So, and we kind of slowly expanded from there.
So no strategy at all initially. You just like stumbled into this amazing niche.
Yeah, exactly. Stumbled into it. A big thing as well too, which I think is just so important for a service business, is kind of do an 80-20 rule on your client base, and then seeing which ones like you get the best results for, you make the most off of, and also just the ones you enjoy working with the most. I mean, so I just find like, especially with these fashion brands or like beauty brands and stuff like that, they all just think they're just so insanely picky on average, and they just care so much about brand. I'm just like, I don't know. It's just not really my kind of.
They're like, you capitalized all of our letters in our name. How dare you?
Yeah, I know, exactly. They're looking at the tiny little details. I'm like, holy smokes. I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course, it's in some of these kind of brands, they are picky and stuff, but it's a different kind of picky that I'm okay with. But yeah, they're just, it's holy smokes. A little bit.
So why is it easier operationally to get like a 25 times ROAS for a hammer brand than it is to get like a 3x on a skincare brand?
I think it's just because there's way less competition. Like, even in the automotive space, like there's barely any brands that are doing ads and email and SMS at a high level. Whereas like you take like, for example, I'll say like supplement brands, like holy smokes, like you need to be running the most insanely dialed ads, landers, offers, email, like everything has to be just like a 10 out of 10 across the board. And even then, it's like, you still might not even do that well. I mean, the product even has to be, so it's just like, You know what I mean? Like you have to be so insanely good at all that. Where it's like I'd rather put all that effort into someone like where it's kind of a little bit like less untapped or more untapped.
So it's much simpler for you and your team, and the brands and probably the audiences tend to be less sophisticated, so it's easier to get results from them. How has that affected like that type of simplicity? How has that affected your team's workload?
Yeah, I would say it's just easier. Like we don't have to go as crazy with like, testing like testing an insane amount of ads or testing like an insane amount of landing pages and stuff like that in order to get kind of the results that we're looking for. It's like, I would say it's just less operational drag in order to get the results that we're looking for, basically. So it's just easier and
Yeah.
faster. Like it's right away usually. So it also depends on the clients that you bring on too. You have to kind of, you gotta pick smartly as well for the ones that you bring on. So that's another big.
How do you make sure that you pick smartly?
I would just say like their revenue for one is very important. I was actually just looking at our top 7 clients in the last month, and usually they were anywhere from like 50 to 250, 300, like anywhere in that kind of range, like basically kind of 50. I would say that's number one. Number two, I would say is like their unit economics. So with e-commerce, because it's all just a numbers game, like if you're spending money on ads, spending a certain amount to get the traffic, all of that kind of stuff. Like if their average order value, conversion rate, revenue per session is all pretty much healthy, and they're in a low competition industry, then it's like, you know what I mean? Like our average cost per click is usually like 50 cents, but we actually just onboarded one brand yesterday, and or last week, and they sell like these lithium ion batteries to like boats. It's a very like random niche. Like we're already launched, and I don't know, the ROAS is just absolutely insane, to be honest. So it's looking pretty good there. And like the cost per click is like 20 cents, but then on average they're spending over $1,000 on average, and then the conversion is actually decently healthy. So I would say those are a couple of big things. And then more recently, I'd say also founder mindset. Like if they just hate agencies, or if they just their mindset with it. Like if they don't really want to grow, like, you know what I mean? Things like that, just like kind of seeing like, what their goals are and what their mindset is. I think that's another big thing that you can kind of reduce churn and, not go into something that doesn't make sense after. So.
Okay, so you have like these very specific qualifications you're looking at when you're onboarding new clients. You have a really well-defined ICP that we stumbled into very luckily. I think the craziest stat that we've gone over is you have how many clients are you at now? You were like 24 last time we checked.
Yeah, 24. Yeah, we're still at that. Yeah.
You have 24 clients, but you have like one pod basically running that.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's probably, I'm going to be expanding it too soon because we're going to try to, we're actually going to kind of fire off the bottom like 5 and then expand to like 30 clients and then have 2 pods. I think that's probably going to be a really good structure. That will probably be about the 2 million profit business right there. So, but yeah, right now it's just, one pod. Yeah, it's a little bit.
Yeah. If I talk to any other client and I'm like, you can have a pod that has 20 people, 20 clients, they'd be like, I'm going to die. There's no way. So I'm sure the ICP has a really big part of that too. But like, what do you think is different about your operation that has allowed you to have that crazy of like an employee to and pod to client ratio?
Good question. I would say it's just like prioritization, also understanding the client goals and stuff like that. And then just like, I don't know, and then also just crushing it in the first 30 days. I think once you crush it in the first 30 days, you gain a lot of respect from them and stuff like that. They trust you way more. Or like, cause we launched like the next day, as soon as we onboard them, like bang, we go, we launch, and then we start getting a good momentum and stuff like that. And then kind of just like working with them as we go. So like if they're like, for example, like the flamethrower one that I mentioned, like they're actually out of stock on pretty much their main selling SKUs right now. So we're actually kind of slowed down and stuff like that. So now we're kind of like reallocating that energy to some other clients. Like, I don't know, it's just like prioritization. Like every week, basically I'll send like the tiers of clients. Like tier 1 is like, we need to push hard. Usually it's like the top, like, 7, 8 or so. Then there's tier 2, we still need the game plans, same with tier 3. And then a couple of them we don't work because we're doing some separate services for them essentially. And maybe like it's not the biggest brand we work with. Like we like more of like just a strategic partner, and then also doing the media buying. So that one there is just a little bit more hands off, if you will. So like we just refer them an agency. Actually, them actually as well too. They're actually in your program there. They basically they do 120 ads a month for a D2C brand essentially. So things like that, and then basically a post purchase guy, like just kind of referring them that. But yeah, I would say, just being efficient with your time and just prioritizing and stuff like that. And I think just because we can get really good results with less of the work, if you will.
Hmm.
Just nailing down the 80/20 rule and like what actually gets the results and just only doing that. You know what I mean? Rather than just doing a bunch of other crap that, doesn't actually move the needle for them.
Okay. So prioritizing based on 80/20, making sure we have the right clients that are coming in.
Yeah.
What does your team look like to service that volume of clients? Like what are the people and the roles and like, how does that kind of all work?
So basically, for it's like so because it's three different services. Basically, on the ad side, we have a media buyer and a senior media buyer, and then basically a meta strategist who's actually moving to ops manager. So he's actually going to manage the three teams essentially. Basically, a copywriter, and then basically and then graphic designer, a couple of video editors and stuff like that. And then on the email and SMS side, another project manager, copywriter. I think also a big thing as well with the copywriters is make them more efficient is using a lot of AI to get things really dialed. Like Claude is just absolutely insane. Like if you
Yeah.
upload the product and just get all the real, like you can, like I think honestly, the company might be able to manage like 30 clients, just the one copywriter, to be honest. Like it's just, once you get things really dialed in, you can make them a lot more efficient.
How many emails are you sending per client on average per month?
I would say probably about 2 a week on average. Or I mean,
Okay.
so we do 1 a week to start off the first 2 months while we're getting the pop-up split testing done, and then basically all the
Hmm.
flows, all 8 flows built out and split tested, and then after that we kind of ramp to about 2 to 3 a week, and then SMS is situational depending on like if they're basically if they're doing kind of any promos, restocks, or new product drops, then we'll go really hard in SMS and like, but yeah, they're super quick to do essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we did not touch on that has also contributed to how efficient your organization is that you've spent a lot of time, an inordinate amount of time relative to the agency owners that I talked to on training the individual team members.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, that's probably a good point. Yeah, I think, like honestly, when we kind of onboard, I mean, I'll actually right now, I mean, eventually probably won't be me, but I'll spend a lot of time with them in the early stages, like hopping on calls with them like a lot, and then just kind of really ramping and training them up. And then just consistently kind of sending them feedback and stuff like that. Usually you want to basically vet people who are open to feedback and coachable and stuff. I think that's a really big one. And then also we did a standard work checklist where basically every Tuesday and Friday they'll send something in and then they'll send over a learning from like Twitter, YouTube, blogs, like anything like that. So that way everybody's getting better and stronger. Then also it's not just like some woo-woo learning, like it has to be either strategic or like tactical. And then basically it has to be something that actually can be applied to the brands. Because if we're just like learning, we're just chucking a bunch of stuff in there and nothing actually gets done, then it's like we're just learning for no reason. But if we actually like, hey, which brands can we apply to? How are we going to do that? And also, I'd say as well, because over the past 7 years, we've actually had only one employee quit. One guy actually said he was going to put in his
Crazy.
2 weeks, change his mind. I was like, oh, okay. It was, whereas I just talked to this one guy
Yeah.
at this event and basically similar team size, he was having one person quit a month. I'm like, Jesus, that sounds insane. So I feel like just treating people really well goes a long way. Complimenting them, just giving them really good feedback actually goes a really long way, more than people realize and stuff. So just creating kind of a positive ecosystem, if you will. And yeah, people really like it. So, and then you have to be
Cool.
constantly meeting new people over and over and over. So,
So
yeah.
you spend a lot of time training, and then you also create these reinforcing learning loops where the team kind of starts to learn on their own.
Exactly, exactly. Because I remember years back, it was always me kind of doing the learnings and passing it on. But then I'm like, why don't we just have everybody doing this? And then it kind of just compounds way faster and stuff like that. So, and then teach them how to learn, I guess. If you will, we actually have to apply it. Otherwise, it's just like kind of useless. You know what I mean? So that's how we kind of how we structure it.
Okay. And so another thing from our conversation that's really interesting, and I don't recommend this for most agents. Like so many of my rules have to adjust for you. It's fun to be challenged. Is that you barely do check-in calls with your clients. Most of your clients don't even want check-in calls. Your Slack updates replace those calls.
Yeah.
What is in the updates? Like how long does that take? How do you templatize them? How does that work?
Yeah. So basically, on a weekly basis, what we'll do, I found with the check-in calls, a lot of times, like they were always like, what were the stats and then what's the plan? But if we just send that over every week on Slack, then it kind of just covers the need for that. Anytime we do
Mhm.
it, kind of call it more like high level ad hoc thing, like kind of high level strategy and what's the big needle movers, I guess, if you will. So it just kind of cuts down a lot of that time. But yeah, we kind of just send that over basically every week on basically we have the team call for email and SMS on Monday. Then we send the update over as well on Monday. Then
Mhm.
Tuesday the ad team call, we'll send that over on Wednesday, and then basically on the UGC side, we do that on Monday as well. So it just seems to kind of just cut down a lot of costs or not cuts down a lot of time, if you will.
Yeah. And costs.
Yeah, exactly. Because I found sometimes they just wouldn't show up to them, or just they didn't like seem like it was just too valuable for a lot of them. Because we work with a lot of like 7-figure brands. It's kind of they're in a spot where it's the founders are just so busy. Like they just you know what I mean? It's just, and if they're getting really good results and things are growing and things are looking good, like kind of eliminates the the need for it as much. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's more just building a relationship, I guess, if you will.
So like the more sophisticated a brand is, and or the worse the account is doing, the more follow up and touch points they need versus if they're doing well and like they're a smaller brand, less is required.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if things are looking good and yeah, exactly. They seem happy, then we're just gonna just keep doing our thing, to be honest. So yeah, less touch points for sure.
Okay. And then who's actually looking at the numbers for all these accounts right now? Is that you? Is that someone else?
Yeah, I'd say the meta strategist and then the kind of senior media buyers kind of like looking at everything on a daily basis. I also do check it as well, like, just because I like it. It's all just on one dashboard, so it's like very easy to kind of check and stuff like that. So I just
Mhm.
like, so I think it's kind of fun, to be honest, and just kind of help figure out how to grow the clients and making sure everyone's getting the best results possible. So I'm getting the highest returns and yeah. So, but I'd say mostly them, and then on the email side, on the project manager is kind of looking at it and making sure
Yeah.
everything's so yeah.
Okay. So you do it because you enjoy it, but somebody else is doing it now.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I remember we had a debate once about you're like, I think client strategy is a very important high leverage thing to do. And I disagreed. And I'm like, it is, but for somebody that's doing service delivery, not for the founder.
Right.
How do you feel about that now?
I feel like you're probably more right, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
once in a while.
Yeah, no, you're definitely more right on that for sure. Definitely trying to get a little bit more moved on it for sure. Cause at the end of the day, it's definitely, I'd say at this point, I'd say sales, marketing is probably at this point. I mean, we're gonna get the ops manager once he's all really, really dialed in. Then I would say honestly, just probably doing those things is more important, and not in the sales more sense where we just start just ramping up like bringing on a crazy amount of brands. It's more like if we can bring on 3 really quality ones a month, and then we just don't lose them, like we'll grow really, really nicely, essentially. So yeah, that's probably more valuable than doing, client strategy and stuff like that. Maybe
Yeah.
approving it, like pushing certain things, but yeah, you're definitely right.
All right. It's good to know that every once in a while I'm right. Okay. So, something else I wanted to talk about is that you made a lot of changes that impacted your churn in a positive way. And your churn dropped from like 14% down to 8%. But I think something that was super interesting about how you found the problem is that you had one team member that had a really low churn rate, it was like 5%. And then you had another that had a much higher rate, which is 22%, but they're both doing the same job. So how did you find out that situation and how did you make changes based on that?
Yeah, I think it was just after, in terms of finding it was just, I think it was just really bad churn one month. And I'm like, and then I noticed that most of them was coming from that one guy. And I was like, wait a second here. And so that's
Yeah.
when they kind of started digging into it a little bit more. Then, yeah, I just realized that I'd say like, it's just all the little details that you do. Like just you'd be launching extra creative, you'd be doing extra split testing, like you'd be doing a lot of extra work. And then on top of that, I'd say the communication, like you could just kind of tell he really just really cared. Whereas like the other guy would just be very like very blunt and just which I don't think is a very good for service-based businesses. I mean, if you look at hotels and stuff like that, you walk into a nicer hotel, the difference in the way they greet you and the way they treat you is vastly different. And that's not just like they don't just show up like that on the right, like they specifically train them on that and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's a very specific way they do it. So you
Mhm.
kind of want to think about like that in terms of the service delivery for the agency, like to kind of treat people in that kind of way and then treat them really well. And like if there's a problem, going like not only being really quick with it, but like go into detail. I think people really, really appreciate that. And just it shows you care. It's not like you're sending over some quick message.
Mhm.
And if or like longer, thicker text, he likes typing things out and stuff like that. But if you're not doing that, you need to send like a voice note that's in depth or like a loom and like go really in depth. Like especially if there's a problem, it's better to kind of go in a lot more detail. So I'd say that was a big piece as well, like communication, and then just a lot of other details that he was doing that the other guy
So
wasn't.
the difference between 5% churn and 20+% churn boiled down to not even the effectiveness of the person at their job, but how they communicate with the client.
Yeah, I would say that was a big thing.
Okay.
I'd say another big thing as well is Is the clients you onboard. I'd say that's a big one. It matters a lot. And then how you kind of set those expectations, stuff like that when you do bring them on and stuff. I'd say that's yeah. You, like genuinely at this point, we don't bring a brand on unless we're very, very, very confident. Like it's gonna be a bit of a home. It's gonna be a home run. You know what I mean? Like it's just before, like back in the day, like let's see, it actually could work. I could be surprised, but then I'm not really surprised. It just didn't work. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big one for churn. I mean, if you bring on and then also the funny thing going back to the other point there as well is like if you bring on a client that you actually get results for, it actually like it takes less time. You know what I mean? Operationally, if you will, but like trying to
For
save
sure.
that client is just like it takes so much time. You're doing all this extra effort, and it's like, and then it doesn't end up working out, and then you just So that's a
Yeah.
big
And they get all the time in the strategy meeting too, because you have to focus on them because they're failing and you have to get the whole team involved to figure out how to turn it around.
one. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Okay. So one thing that you and I have also gone back and forth is that you're doing strategy, you're doing onboarding, you're doing upsells, you were doing the check-in calls at one point. When did you realize that made you the bottleneck in everything?
Yeah, I think it just, talking to you and stuff like that, kind of just mapping out exactly what we're doing, where we're spending the time, and what needs to be offloaded was insanely helpful, and kind of just getting another set of eyes on it.
Mhm.
Someone like Kyle is absolutely dialed on everything he does operationally. So, yeah, I think that's a big thing. We're still in the process of doing that, but once that does get done, especially the onboarding, recruiting, and the team calls, that's like it's a big chunk of time, you know what I mean? And it's just, yeah. So once that kind of gets alleviated, then you can spend more time, bring on the right type of clients and stuff like that. That's more the high level work that we're talking about. So yeah, still in the process of it, but yeah, I think it's just, yeah, getting another set of eyes on also just tracking your time too, and then getting someone like Kyle to kind of look at your time and to just have like you need to get this off your plate. You need to get this off your plate, blah, blah, this and that. So
Dude, it's such a big deal. And you're one of the few agency owners that came on and had already started tracking their time and Clockify like every minute of time too. Not even like, oh, I'm tracking my time. Like really, you did strategically, you've done this very well. So I
yeah.
appreciate you for doing that. But then you see how fast you're able to make decisions based on that data once you're actually tracking it too.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. Yeah. I find it fun. It makes you actually more productive, and it's free. Literally, it's free. It's like a nice software. I recommend everyone to do it, to be honest. And it makes you more productive. And yeah, then you can kind of look back and they create these nice little reports and stuff. You're like, oh, wow. Then it has a nice little pie chart where you're spending your time and stuff. And then you kind of look at it holistically. Otherwise, yeah, it's tough to bring someone like to Kyle and be like, yeah, I think I'm doing this, but no, it's not that bad. But then you actually check the numbers. You're like, oh, wow. Okay. I'm actually spending a lot of time on that. You're like, without even realizing it. So, things add up. So, yeah.
I think most people have a very poor perception of how much time they spend on things unless they track it. Like you think you try to remember earlier in the day or earlier in the week, and like you're always way off of the actuals.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of just ends up adding up like way more than you think. And all the little details and nuance of like onboarding, for example, it's a lot more than people think. So yeah, I'm with you.
So what's your framework now for deciding this is a thing that stays with me as a founder versus this is a thing that gets delegated to the team can handle?
Yeah, I would say like just talking to you and stuff like that, and then just doing your own thinking, and then just kind of just seeing where you're at in the business and what kind of is the next stage. I feel like a lot of people, they might see some generic advice online and think that, oh, they need this or they need it, but like you kind of have to kind of do your own thinking for your own specific situation. Like
Mhm.
I remember Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark, said literally every single business is completely unique and it's a one of one. Like no business is like exactly like another. Of course, there's patterns, of course, but you have to do your own thinking for your own stage, if that makes sense. There's
Mhm.
like stages of every part. So you have to kind of understand that and then be able to kind of make decisions off that. Just be like, okay, I've been doing this, but now in order to get to the next level, I kind of got to offload this and to get to the next spot there, to be honest. So yeah, I think that's kind of how, yeah. Also talking to guys
Okay.
like you. Yeah.
We can help. Thank you for that. So let's move on to you hired a head of performance, which is kind of your version of like a pod lead. And before that, you were the sole strategist of all those brands. How impactful has that move been? Did anything break? Like what broke, or what can you say on that?
Yeah, still in the process of doing that in the transition.
Mhm.
We actually ended up deciding to just kind of promote the meta strategist for it because he already kind of understand the two of the three services, and he also had a lot of good chemistry with the team, and he was just kind of a leader from day one. So Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, and he already has like 10 years marketing experience already. It just made perfect sense. So we're still
Mhm.
kind of in the transition, but basically the goal in the next like 60, 90 days is I'm basically out of the team calls, out of onboarding, and then out of like recruiting for the most part with that basically that one hire, to be honest. So that's kind of the goal with it. So I think we can do
Yeah,
it. It's but yeah, no, it's going to be a huge unlock. I think that's what's going to help us kind of get to the
that's
next.
amazing.
Yeah.
I really always like to try to promote people from within if I can. That
Yeah.
job specifically is usually one that people have not hired the right level of skill to be able to move people up an organization for that role though.
Right.
But you did.
Yeah, yeah, luckily. So we'll see how it pans out. We're
Yeah.
still in the transition. I mean, I could be looking back 6 months and be like, oh, Kyle, you're right. So it's like, I got to go recruit. But yeah, I think, recruiting from it or, promoting from within, I try to prioritize
Mhm.
just because, yeah, it's just quicker. They already understand the business. Like he's already been with us for 8 months or something already. Kind of just already understands. He's already been on all the onboarding call, like a lot of them. He just
Mhm.
understands everything. So it's just kind of a quick little, just move him over here and then get him trained up on the rest of the stuff. And then I'll keep training him as we go along every week and stuff. So,
Yeah,
um,
weekly training people.
yeah,
The
exactly.
training. Yeah.
And the recruiting and training business.
What's been the hardest part of delegating and transferring process to that team member?
Uh, I would just say like just a level of stuff that they need to know and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like building out a checklist, built out this little weekly ops report and stuff for what they need to fill out and the strategy for each client. Like just kind of building all that out, and then also just kind of just letting go. You know what I mean? At a certain point, you just you just gotta let them take the wheel essentially. So that's definitely a hard part for a lot of founders. I feel like,
Mhm.
which I'm still working on as well too. I mean, I'm not perfect at it, but yeah,
So you're making checklists.
yeah.
What other level of process do you have for this team member to learn that, or is a lot of it like on the job training with you?
Yeah, I would say a bit of on the job training with me, videos that I'm making on different aspects, like a weekly and daily checklist of all the stuff they need to look through and stuff like that. And then also just like a weekly ops report, basically where it's going to be like breakdown of each client and like a couple like big picture moves for the week or the next like stage here, what we need to work on and stuff like that. And then just how he understands the growth of like where they're trying to go. This year, we're going to be focused a lot more on offense, just because I think we're going to be just trying to really push the brands way more. I think last year we were down in the profitability of the brands and stuff like that. That was kind of the big theme. But this year, I think we're gonna push. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. So make sure
Cool.
they're.
You put deep into like growth training last year.
What's that?
Growth, so like forecasting and projecting and profitability.
Yeah, exactly. Try to work on that more and stuff like that, and then just launching more creatives, just way more. Just doing a lot more emails, more creatives, and then better. Just make them as strong as you possibly can, and then just doing like good weekly learnings where we're like learning off the ads we're launching and stuff like that. And why is it working? Why is it not working? And then making ideas off that, and then just yeah. So just trying to.
How many more creatives are you doing now?
How many creatives are we doing? Sorry.
How many more? You said like you're doing more creatives, you're doing more emails.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the if we're doing content for them, I would say probably anywhere from probably about 20 to 30 ads for them a month. But I want to get that even higher, to be honest. So yeah, probably anywhere from like maybe 30 to 60 or so a month for it, and trying to aim to get them there.
What's the split like video versus still images?
Yeah, I would say mostly video. I'd say probably like 60 to 70% video.
Mhm.
That's usually what moves the needle here in 2026, I'd say, for the brands, for what we find personally. Maybe from other industries or other niches, it's different, but video definitely outperforms. It's just harder to do, but it
Mhm.
outperforms. So that's the
Yeah,
thing.
for
Yeah.
sure. Especially with like $1,000 batteries. Like you have to be able to tell a story of why someone needs or a $300 hammer.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I got to go over the feet, all the main benefits and stuff like that. Highlight. Yeah, so there's a lot more you can kind of showcase within a video rather than just a quick static. Statics are good for like kind of testing different angles and approaches and different avatars and stuff like that. But I feel like
Mhm.
video, you can really kind of, you can kind of take someone who's not even really fully in market and kind of, get them sold.
Yeah, kill it for them. And then how are you deciding, let's take like the creative or email process. How are you deciding what becomes the next process that you're going to work on versus what stays tribal knowledge for the teams?
But do you mean in terms of like what new ad tests we're gonna do and stuff like that? Do you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah, that basically. we basically have the strategist and copywriter meet before the team call, and they come up with ideas. They're basically doing a bunch of research. They're seeing what's working right now, what, based off research, what new ideas you can kind of have. And that's coming from like ad comments, reviews, like looking at other things as well, blogs, competitors, Reddit, stuff like that. Come up with ideas like from there, and then basically bringing those to the team call, already having things ready to go. And then we kind of just like touch it up, or like we adjust from that essentially. So yeah, that's typically kind of the process we have for it, and it kind of just seems to work really well.
Okay, a lot of research. And then
Yeah.
is your creative team and email team, are they using a lot of templates or frameworks for these ads, or is everything just new?
I would say there is some templates. I created like a bit of an ad toolbox for the first like 2 months of onboarding brand. Hey, we want to do these specific concepts, and that kind of helps and then we can kind of change the toolbox if we will. Then after that, it's more so doing research and learning. So after that, so that kind of helps like templatize it a bit more. That way, it's not just completely random or all over the place. Kind of just gives a bit of a framework. It's just we can adjust it and adjust the toolbox if we will. But yeah, that's kind of how we do with that. And then on the email side, it's more split testing the pop up, and then getting all 8 flows dialed in. In terms of the campaigns, we do want to get even more granular, a bit more dialed in terms of like the segmentation. I think we wrote down like 11 improvements we're going to be doing on the service. So there's a lot that we need to work on. So, we're definitely going to dial in that process even further. So,
Cool.
yeah.
So it sounds like you have a lot of good frameworks that are already for the team that the team's working on, and then you're creating new ones on a consistent basis too.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of helps speed things up and stuff like that. So, yeah, templatize it, the brands and stuff.
How has that impacted your revision rate with clients?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely made it less revisions, I guess, if you will, because it's just if everything's got very templatized, we know exactly what works for them and stuff like that, then it just kind of helps cut down our revisions. Of course, there's going to be, say 80-20 rule. There's going to be those couple of clients that are so picky no matter what. They're just so it's that of course is always going to happen. Like it's just. But then also, I'd say another big thing as well too is on onboarding, we kind of tell them how to kind of best way to work together and stuff like that. And we kind of tell them like, hey, like, it's okay to be picky, but if you are, then got to be quick. You know what I mean? And the worst thing is like if they're picky and slow on their revisions.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, killer.
Yeah, that's like the worst combination. But also try to keep it to like maybe 1 tops, 2 revisions tops, and like let's get some data. Like let's, you know what I mean? Like we're using all your brand fonts. Like everything's kind of all in sync. Like we just kind of move on it. So. Because onboarding, they're listening to everything. They're like really paying attention because they just, they're just starting off. They're really paying attention. So
That's
usually
What's so important for onboarding is like expectation setting with the client. What are the other things you expectation set on?
I actually tell them to compliment the team. I say that it's a really nice way to kind of inspire creativity, just keep a bit of a positive ecosystem. I tell them like to have respectful communication. Like I tell them like characters in the last like 7 years, like I've had clients swear at team members and stuff like that. Like there's just zero tolerance for that. Like it's not like, you think you don't need to say that, but then you run into some characters sometimes.
You gotta say it for sure. Yeah.
Especially the clients we deal with. Like maybe if you're in a different niche, like it's fine, but like, you get some guys around the edges and they don't really realize. But the funny thing is, you tell them that, then they start they start treating you with absolute respect. They start complimenting you. I also tell them like to think long term. And then I sell them on the idea of why, like, the biggest business in the world, they don't just like, it's not like a 30-day, 60-day play, what I mean? They're thinking long-term and stuff like that. So that, and then we kind of go over like, hey, how we're kind of doing the approval process and like promos, here's kind of the plan for that, things like that. So I think those really, really help out.
Yeah. What's interesting is you tell them to think long-term, which is what a lot of agencies do when they can't deliver fast. But then part of your onboarding is also focusing on time to value and how do we get results as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So you're decreasing their expectation, but then you're providing a lot of value up front. And it's like, wow, crazy.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you don't want to be stuck in the thing, oh, just, next month, or you know what I mean? Like think long term, like, for, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's not good. It's just, yeah, you got to make sure you get results quick, and then once we're kind of over the initial hurdle, then then you got to think long term for sure, great investments and stuff. So yeah.
So speaking of thinking quick and moving quick, I remember there was an analysis you did. I can't remember if it was email or creative, but one of those teams, the lead time was incredibly long. I think it was creative when we first started working together. It took like a month and a half or 2 months to deliver creative. And then you fixed it. Do you remember what you did to fix it?
I'm trying to think of that specific one. A month and a half to get. Oh yes. Okay. No, this is huge. Yeah, this is a huge unlock. This is basically for on the UGC side. So basically, we essentially would onboard the brand, and then because we're doing outbound for the creators, basically it would take a while. Like it takes like at least like 2 to 3 weeks. Like if we're talking onboarding, or sorry, if we're talking doing outbound, like we have to find the creators because they're very niche. Like for example, like one of them we're doing like they have to have like a Toyota RAV4, they have to drive a Toyota Tundra. Like we're talking like 3 vehicles. Like you can't just go ahead and post on some of these UGC platforms. Like you have to like go find them and then go reach out to them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it takes time. Like it takes like 2 to 3 weeks. Now the problem is by the time we get the creative, so this is really helpful sitting down with Kyle. We basically mapped out literally every step of the process and how long it took on average, and then basically like it's about a month and a half on average when it literally needs to be like half that. It needs to be like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So basically what we started doing, what Kyle and I discussed was basically start reaching out to reaching out to the creators before we even start working on them, and then basically have them ready to go and stuff like that. We're actually taking it a step further, and we're actually going to do it something even better, which is the same kind of concept, was where we take a deposit. Say for instance, they start, we take a deposit, we onboard, and then we basically don't officially start until we have like 3 creators signed. And so because that takes the longest, so I'm like I haven't actually fully done that yet, but that's an idea I came up with, and I think that's going to make it even better. But the whole concept is like how can you make it like as fast as possible, and like even though like a very operationally complex service, like how can you really kind of look at every single part, how long they get realistic how they all take, and then add it up, and then yeah, when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, pretty much takes like a month and a half, and it's not good, especially on that first month. So we needed to like speed that up. So that's huge, and then that basically cuts down the churn. You get better results and so many other things.
Cool. So we built it's basically called a value stream map. We're going to map out each part of the process, and then we're going to look at the process time, and that's how long it actually takes to do it. So for an editor, like how long does it actually take for you to edit a video? And we also look at the lead time, which is that time plus the wait time that happens in the system. And it's always like 30 minutes to edit a video, 3 days to actually do the video edit because of all of their stuff that's going on and clients waiting. And so the lead time is always substantially longer. So we're looking at how do we compress that lead time? And usually my goal is like a 50% decrease in lead time first pass on any new process because there's just so much waste in that process. And you were able to find that, which is awesome.
Yeah, I feel like it's so helpful to kind of look at it from a bird's eye view of everything that needs to happen, then just like just how can you make it faster every part, and just so it's just rather you're just like doing it, you're in the weeds and you don't realize, and then next thing you know you kind of so it's nice to look at. That was a super helpful process, I feel like.
Intentionally fast.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes a big difference. Yeah, clients don't care about excuses and stuff. Like they just care about the results and how fast it is. So that's the thing.
Cool. Something else I wanted to talk about is you treat your hiring funnel much like a sales funnel, and you built a huge VSL, like a recruitment VSL, to attract talents. How is that working? What does your hiring process look like now? How does all that come together?
Yeah, well, I feel like a big misconception a lot of people have is they don't like they think that just because they have a job post that people need to like apply and stuff like that. Whereas you actually do need to kind of sell them on the role and also the company, and like unless you're like Google or like something massive, like you could just be like, hey, here's the job, here's the requirements, and it's gonna be a fat list, and you know what I mean. It's just they don't need, like, everybody knows the company, you know what I mean. So I feel like you
Mhm.
need to actually spend more time really kind of selling them on like what's in it for them. And so we just see on the job posts and stuff like that, we'll actually like really spend most of the time doing that, and then a little bit on the requirements. Then obviously you can kind of vet, and then what ends up happening is you end up getting more quality candidates, especially compared to like just like kind of a job post that's only to kind of just doesn't highlight all the benefits on it and stuff like that. So we
Mhm.
actually haven't made a VSL yet. It's more so we spend more time on the actual job post itself, and also on the interview. So when we hop on with them, I'm
Mhm.
kind of like, so that the ops manager, he's going to be kind of like selling them on the role and stuff like that, and like getting them excited and stuff like that, rather than just So I think that's a really really important piece. I think it's really really yeah.
It's really crazy. I'll talk to agency owners that do like paid media and growth for a living. And I'm like, show me your job post. And it's like, it looks like the most boring thing in the entire world. I'm like, Do you think this is exciting for somebody to open up and like, I want to work for this company? No. So you need to put like your growth marketer hat on, your marketer hat on when we're making these job posts. And it should be just like a content funnel, like a sales letter. Ideally with a VSL, like the video content also helps too. That can help a lot for
Yeah.
positions that are more difficult to fill too, but convince people to work with you because nobody knows who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes even though we use AI, I actually structure in a way where it makes it look like it's not AI. Like I'll just chuck in a couple little things in there that just makes it look like it's not AI written and stuff like that, and just the way I format it. So, well, actually, we'll do one that's more of a casual, like I'm almost talking to a friend, and then one that's more structured. So we'll split test different formats and stuff like that. That's also another one too, as well, that I remember you mentioned as well as you like split testing the title, split
Yeah.
testing.
It's like, it's the headline. It's the most important
Yeah,
thing. We should split this. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. Not a lot of people do that. So now, unless you do the first one and you get like 100 plus applicants, and it's like, okay, we're good. But if you don't, and especially if it's more niche of a role, then you got to really, yeah, kind of, yeah,
You got tests. Yeah.
you
Just
test,
like a
yeah,
good marketer.
yeah, exactly, and gather everything up, and yeah, even split test how you actually approach the whole recruiting process, not just that. Like, so we'll test like sending a test right away. Sometimes we'll test doing an interview right away. Like, it depends on the role and depends what it is. If it's overseas, if it's, North America, like, you know what I mean? It's just, you got
Yeah.
to test like everything. It's almost an entire thing from them hearing about you to getting hired and stuff like that. So, um,
Yeah. Always something to test in the funnel.
yeah, no, absolutely. Every little bit. So important. Yeah.
So one of the things that I usually do not recommend, and I think I actually didn't recommend this for you, and then you did it anyway, but it actually worked, was adding another service, adding email and SMS. And the reason that I usually don't recommend that for agencies, at least sub a couple $100,000 a month agencies, is because every additional service adds so much operational complexity and so much additional communication and alignment that needs to happen that it usually works for a little bit and then it blows up in their face, as opposed to like if we sell something like pest control, we're like, I'm gonna add roach control. It's like, okay, you need to train this person for like 3 minutes on how to spray the new spray. Really easy to cross sell that and train people on. But email is like incredibly difficult to do at scale operationally. But you did it and it's been successful. So what has been the biggest factor for success for you on that?
Yeah, well, I would say like first and foremost is like you got to look at yourself as the founder or founders and seeing what your guys' competitive advantages. Like for me, I'm actually good. I'm actually good operationally. Like I like that stuff. If you're more
Mhm.
sales focused, I would just say just have one service and like yeah, I would have one service and then try to look at like doing a lot of partnerships. Like if you only do ads, for example, then you look at like building out partnerships for every other, like you build up partners with an email agency, this and that, a content, you know what I mean? And then you guys refer each other stuff. That's probably looking back, I'd probably do more of that and stuff. But for me, it's like, just, I actually like the operational side. Like we can really kind of take on it and just the clients needed it. They all needed it. It just made way too much sense. And also I'm
Mhm.
good. And then also I'd say the timing as well. You don't want to do too much too fast. You do want like basically you do one at a time and you do it very slowly, slower than you think. And you really build it up. Like you hire, like, you know what I mean? You hire the team, you build all the systems, things are running really, really, really smooth. And then you slowly expand. And then you kind of, it takes longer than you think. Like then you got,
Yeah.
you got to start, in my opinion, like you as a founder, you need to know everything. Like I was watching this podcast of what's that big chicken franchise in the US? It's absolutely massive. They got like
Chick-fil-A?
no, it's a very
No,
similar. They only sell the chicken fingers and stuff.
I'm not sure.
I forget you
God,
actually.
I don't eat that much unhealthy food,
Yeah,
unfortunately. So the
I know,
Chick-fil-A.
they're massive. I mean, they're doing.
KFC is another big one.
No, yes, I'll still look it up after. But anyways,
Yeah.
what impressed me, I mean, they're absolutely massive. They've been around for like 30, 40 years or whatever. They expanded
Mhm.
like all over the US. And basically he was saying like, just like he knew every detail about his business. Like he knew exactly like what the product, he knew exactly the exact detail of every little bit. And it's like, dude, if this guy's absolutely like this big, like, and he knows every little detail, like, you need to know every little detail of service. I feel like some people, they'll just maybe think they can just hire some head and then, or just, you know what I mean? Or do this or acquire like, I don't know. In my opinion, I think you got to start around. You got to understand everything. This is my opinion. This is how I was trying. I
Mhm.
mean, anyone can do whatever they
I
want.
agree. Yeah.
And so it's like if you're gonna be able to build a team and stuff like that and like sell it to the clients, I don't, and then also deliver on it really, really well at a high level, I think you need to understand it. So but the thing is people Like they think it's like you can learn email and SMS and get to maybe like a 60 or 70% competency in like a weekend. Give me like 40 or 50 videos and I'll be able to talk the talk. You know what I mean? That's like a weekend. And it's just the, you know, getting a bit more granular over like 6, 12, 18 months. And you understand all the fine details, you get way more experience, but like you can flick it up in like a weekend, in my opinion, and get to like good knowledge level. And that's my opinion. I mean, I like that stuff. So I think it's that. And then, yeah, just like making sure the first one's good and then you slowly build it out. That's real work for me, it's to be honest. So, but yeah.
So knowing every detail of it, but it took you like 5 emails to build it, right? Because or 5 years at doing paid media mostly, only to
Yeah.
then add the email service.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, funny enough, it was actually me getting involved doing some more consulting with this other guy. And it was so funny. He was doing like double or triple the revenue. And when I hopped on with him, he had a very similar amount of clients. And I was like, well, wait a second. And like the reason why I was going to basically get consulting from him was basically is because just to see another outbound chat, like another method of doing outbound. But then I realized I'm like, I'm better at outbound than him. But you know what I mean? It was just super funny. I was better at outbound than him, but he's making what like his agency was doing way more. So I was like, what the heck? And then I realized he was really dialed at doing the other services and stuff. And I was like, and I saw that and it kind of made sense for me at the time. And so, yeah, you got to look situationally for yourself and see what makes the most sense.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something I thought was really interesting, which is you have like an advantage in Canada, like a cash advantage, a dollar advantage.
Yeah.
How does all that work? What's this arbitrage?
Yeah. Arbitrage. Yeah. If you look at the biggest companies in the world, they all have some sort of arbitrage and stuff like that. So it's for us, basically, we have mostly all US clients. It's like 85% US clients and we charge in USD. But then the thing is, the team is in Canada and then overseas. So we actually don't have any full-time American employees. Not yet. We will probably eventually. But right now, it's a bit of a profit arbitrage because the dollar is like, so if we make, 100,000, like for easy math, we make 100,000 US, it's actually about 135,000 Canadian, and then we're paying Canadian salaries. So we just get a huge arbitrage. And then obviously if you're hiring overseas,
Which is like 30% less than US salaries, maybe 40%, depending upon the
yeah,
region.
exactly. Exactly. So it's a smaller talent pool, but that's also why like we make sure we don't lose the employees and stuff like that. We treat them really well and stuff. And yeah, I remember it was actually funny enough, Eddie's event or whatever, and he was saying like I remember someone saying like hire Canadians for doing project management.
They're Americans that are 40% cheaper.
No, it wasn't even that. It was actually they're actually nicer. He thinks that on average
Oh,
they're
they're
nice.
nicer too.
Yeah. It was actually more for that reason, but yeah, that's another big benefit. So yeah, it all ends up working really, really well. So
Cool. So you're coasting, or you're not coasting. You're always improving, but you are making a consistent like 6-figure profit per month. A lot of people would coast then. What are you trying to do now? Like, what's your big plan?
yeah, I would say like trying to get to 2 million profit, basically. I don't know. The way I see business, it's just kind of, it's a bit of a game. You're always just trying to figure out and just keep improving stuff like that. And my view is like, if you don't want to grow the business, then you need to either sell it or hire someone who's going to do it. So someone needs to do it. Like they have to grow. Like if you don't grow, like I remember like year 2 or something like that, I actually just kind of let my foot off the gas and I just got completely just coasted. And then it just started like, there's no such thing as like flatlining. It's like, you're going to start dropping. So
Up and down.
yeah. So I would say like, yeah, just keep building the team, keep improving, and just keep consistently just kind of improving things. We've got a lot of plans for the clients and stuff like that. Yeah, just getting out of the team calls, get fully out of onboarding and a lot of recruiting, and then basically I spend more time doing just marketing and stuff like that, just more outbound. There's just so much we can do with the outbound stuff. There's actually an agency that was speaking at the event I was just at. He's a founder of GenFlow or something, and basically he only has 65 clients, but then on average, I think he makes like 20 grand a month off of each one. And the way he gets them is actually off outreach is what he does, where he basically kind of handpicks clients and he like comes up with a really custom outreach for them and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the next stage where I'm going to have to, once we get the service really, really, really good, and it's, quite lots of my time, then I'm going to have to spend more time kind of going out there and doing more of that and then eventually hire that off and then you get about, you know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know. It's always just the next steps and you know what I mean? So keep improving and stuff and keep.
Okay, so get to 2 mil net, and then focus on higher strategic level things for the agency.
Yeah,
That's
basically.
it.
Yeah, basically. So I think pretty much
And
getting Yeah, pretty much firing off of bottom 4 or 5 clients, then getting up to 30 with where we're projected at. I think we'll be able to hit 2 million net, probably more than that, to be honest. I think
Any
so.
reason on the 2 million net, the specific number?
Let's say it again, sorry. On the 2
Any
million.
reason for the 2 million net? Because it's a very specific number.
Yeah, I know. It's why, because we're already at, we just did over 1 million last year. So it's just another benchmark to just go after. I don't know. And I also kind of, I feel like a lot of people, they have goals that are very revenue focused, but actually keep it more with it. Like if I had a SaaS, then I probably would focus on that. But like for this, it's more of just a cash flow thing. So I just kind of focus more on that. And you also get what you kind of go after. If I'm in my head, I'm like 2 million profit, then I have to be smart with how I get there. You kind of start blasting costs and stuff like that and just start getting bloated. Like we have to be very efficient and we have to be very intentional how we get there. You know what I mean? So it gets you thinking a certain type of way. Like for me, I don't know, that just excites me more rather than like a $10 million agency that nets like a, $1 million or 1.5, or which you'd be surprised some of them that
A lot too, yeah.
so I don't think we'd stop there just yet, but I actually never thought I'd want to sell it. But now I'm like, you know what, maybe if we grow it in the next 5-10 years and just kind of start like keep growing and stuff, maybe eventually it's like you get an offer you can't really refuse. But yeah, I think the big thing is you don't want to just sell it and have nothing to do. I think that's where a lot of people go kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, crazy
Stuff and they just don't know what they're doing. And it's like, like otherwise I'd be sitting there golfing all day or something. I don't know. So you gotta have something to work on. So that's the thing. So you gotta figure it out as you go.
I love that. So last question then, because I want to be respectful of your time and we're already over time, and I greatly appreciate it. So if you could go back and tell yourself one thing from when you were starting off, what would that one thing be?
One thing in general, or one thing in terms of the ops, you say?
One thing in general. Yeah, it doesn't need to be ops, just general.
Or like one thing, or with the
Specific to your agency, yeah.
yeah. I would just say maybe there's no one right way to be successful or do things and stuff. I think you kind of got to test different things and figure out what works for you and your competitive advantage and stuff like that, and what you're naturally good at as a founder and stuff like that. Like I know a lot of people that usually get in this space are usually really good at sales and marketing and stuff like that. And so like lean into that. For me, I don't know, I like the back end better and stuff like that. So it's just, and operations and stuff. So I would say, yeah, there's just no one right way to kind of go about things. You just kind of got to carve your own path, if you will, and every business is completely unique. Of course, there's patterns, but like, yeah. So I'd say that's probably a big thing. And then just kind of looking at what you're doing and analyze and just keep improving. If you keep improving, you'll be set, to be honest. Yeah.
Great advice from someone who tests things a lot and consistently challenges me, which is great.
I know. It makes a good case for everything. So
So Adam, so if people want to find you after this, how can they do that?
basically, I guess just a website. It's called AQMedia.com. I'm on YouTube as well. Actually, I'm slacking on that content there. And then, yeah, you can just send me an email if you want, adam@AQMmedia.com.
Amazing. Dude, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, brother.
No worries. Well, thanks for your time there, Kyle. Appreciate you, man.
Peace.